Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knoxville and Knox County government, politics, business, education, and just about anything else that strikes our fancy. I am Scott Barker, the editor of Compass, and Compass is a subscription-based website and newsletter where we report on all those topics and more, and you can find us at CompassKnox.com. I'm joined, as always, by Compass co-founder Jesse Mayshark, who also hosts Headlights, which is a podcast of the Progressive South. Jesse, yesterday was election day, we're taping this on Friday. Yesterday was election day. Have you recovered yet?
I think I need to get an actual full night's sleep before I could say recovered. Like you, I was up quite late last night. I did not get very much sleep because of the election, which of course is what we're going to be talking about. How are you doing? I mean, look, we're both here. We are on Friday afternoon. We're awake. We're conscious, more or less. We're out of the house. Like, I think we're doing okay.
Yeah. That was an achievement.
Yeah.
I do think that coffee is the most important discovery in human history.
Yeah, there's that quote from Benjamin Franklin about beer, where he said that beer is a sign that God loves us and wants us to be happy. I think you could definitely substitute coffee for that, and it would be just as true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, God made coffee so we could function.
That's right.
He made beer so we could be happy. Yeah, there's a difference. Anyway, and we are recording this in the opulent studios of Barbarian Productions in Rocky Hill, where Lord Seth Barber runs the show. Lord Seth, give us your 3-day weather report, if you don't mind.
Well, I know we've had a weird, fun week of these, at least out here in Rocky Hill. We had a deluge on Tuesday evening, just out of nowhere. It just poured, and then it stopped. And then the sun came back out and it got stupid hot. And it looks like we're getting a threat of that again right now. It's just one of those fun weeks where the scattered showers come.
Thursday night was pretty severe. I was downtown and big storm blew through there right around when the polls were closing.
Yeah.
My parents in North Knoxville had a lightning strike really near their house that took out their internet router. They're waiting for a guy from Comcast to come fix that.
But it's one of those weeks. Just depends where you are in town and which day of the week it happened to you this week. But it seems like everybody got one of those.
Yeah, it hit pretty hard. I was in North Knoxville getting ready to go downtown when that storm hit, and it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So,
but I slept fine last night. I didn't stay up all night writing stories about it. So get that part on the books real quick.
Well, we do have a limited number of topics, but we will be talking about them for a long time because of the election. One of the things we'll be talking about that's not election related is Knoxville Police Chief Paul Noel was suspended without pay for a month. We'll talk about why and what went on to lead up to that and all that. But the big the big news, of course, was the election. We had, for Knox County, a pretty decent turnout. It's about a third of the registered voters showed up, close to 90,000. So that was, while not cause for celebration, at least a little bit more encouraging because some more people showed up. The big local race was for Knox County mayor. Republicans had won the previous 6 elections for Knox County mayor, dating back to 2002. And Betsy Henderson kept that streak going, but by a very small margin. The smallest margin of any Republican who's won that seat since 2002. But some of those were unopposed. But when it's been competitive, they've won by a lot more than just the 5-point margin that she defeated Beau Hawk, who was the Democratic nominee, president of the Knoxville Oak Ridge Labor Council, and in the despite the Republican dominance in these countywide races up till this year, really, Henderson, kept this, drumbeat of, I will not raise taxes, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's a pledge. I will make sure I don't raise taxes. Hawk, to be fair, didn't say he wanted to raise taxes, but they also painted him as a communist because he, famously, as we've talked about before, went on a trip to Venezuela 6 years ago. That was organized by a Marxist organization with ties to organized labor, and of course he was a member of the Teamsters at the time, and went down and participated in a President Maduro march. But despite all that, Henderson, she got 52.5% of the vote, and Hawk got 47.5%, which was the best showing of any Democrat since Tommy Shumpert won in 98.
Yeah, I mean, the best showing for that office by any Democrat, but also the best showing by any Democrat, period, countywide in 20 years, since 2006. And it was, I will say right up front, that race was closer than I thought it would be. At some point in this episode, we will unveil our predictions that we made last week and see where me, Scott, and Seth came out on it. But I will go ahead and say that my guess on that was I thought Henderson might get about 57% of the vote. And so she got a lot less than that. Mm-hmm. And of course, and we'll talk about the other races as well, but this was a function of, it was a pretty good, the Democrats did not win any countywide races, but it was still, overall, it was a really good night for Knox County Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
That showed up in that race for sure.
Oh, yeah. But before we get, we'll get to all this later, but, Democrats took control of the school board. They have a majority on school board now, and gained a seat. They flipped one in the in county commission. So that puts that while they're still in the minority by a couple of seats. The bigger your block, the more likely it is that the other side will have to cajole you into supporting what they want you to support. But the Republican majority on commission is not used to cajoling. So anyway, Hawk ran a good campaign. He explained, although he did a really good job explaining that trip to Venezuela at first, but he did find his footing on it, and voters obviously did not. Most voters did not hold that against him. They weren't,
at least not enough to not vote for him.
Not enough to not vote for him. Yeah, and they were well organized. I lived near. He basically ran his campaign out of the union office over on Hutchinson Avenue in North Knoxville. I used that as a cut through from where I live to other parts of North Knoxville, and go by there, and there would be quite a few cars there, and it was always busy. They're busier than usual.
I think he energized a lot of volunteers who came out. And I also saw and heard a lot more about him, positive things about him, being circulated through social media, various other places. I think more than any Democratic candidate for county mayor that I can remember. I just had this sense of this very active, dynamic campaign. A lot of proxies out there popping up on all the different Facebook or Reddit threads.
There's the whole Beau Hawk's hot part of the campaign that was going on too that I thought was kind of interesting.
Definitely people were Beau Hawk is not a bad looking guy, and I think there were definitely people who leaned into that. One thing, and I mentioned this the other week when we were talking, and I want to mention it again because it was something that struck me. The way, like the Republicans, both the Henderson campaign and then just sort of Knox County Republicans in general, really, like once the reporting about that Venezuela trip came out, and then especially there was this one photo of Hawk where he's standing there with like a ball cap on. Of course, he's got a big beard, and he was wearing a CCCP shirt, like a vintage Soviet Union sort of shirt. And they just plastered that photo everywhere. And as I was seeing that, I thought, I mean, I understand that to like a conventional East Tennessee Republican, that definitely looks damning and even like disqualifying. Like, remember we talked about Andrew Davis, local conservative consultant, wrote an op-ed for the News Sentinel saying that Hawk should drop out of the race because this trip to Venezuela was so disqualifying. But I think what they maybe missed is that for a lot of younger people in particular, and of course not that many younger people voted, it was still an older crowd, but it didn't register that way at all. And the thing that it made me think, I lived in New York City in the early 2000s, and I was like, this just looks like the cool dude down at the record store in Williamsburg. You know, like, it depends on your life experience, I suppose, how much a sort of like hipster with a beard wearing a vintage Soviet Union shirt triggers you, or if you're just like, yeah, that's just like a guy who, you know, probably likes LCD sound system or something.
Yeah, just a kind of a vintage kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it, you know, really, I think for a lot of people, you know, maybe who are, you know, 60 or so, maybe a little younger, the Soviet Union, the specter of the Soviet Union doesn't really exist. You know, it's that's for, you know, it was not, I mean, it was a relic of the Cold War, which is long gone. And I think a lot of people look at it that way, even though Russia now is led by a former Soviet, intelligence thug, you know, to be honest. And it was, you know, that connection just, I don't think people make that connection anymore. And
it's an interesting indicator because we're seeing the same thing at the national level. Obviously, like the National Republican Party is kind of doing this across the country, saying that because of, you know, some successful Democratic Socialist candidates and so forth. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, just on his social media the other day put up an image of like a Soviet Union hammer and sickle with then like a Democratic donkey above it, you know, basically doing a Red Scare thing. The Democrats are communists. And, you know, as I thought with like the Beau Hawk photo, looking at that, I was like, I don't know, man, does that really get anybody to exercise these days? I mean, anybody who's not going to vote Republican anyway, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, and one thing that was kind of interesting is last night, or Thursday night, I was at the Crowne Plaza, which is the traditional Republican gathering place on election night. And there was a lot of concern all through the night on that race. The Republicans were really surprised at how
I don't
close
think they expected it to be close.
I can tell you for a fact they didn't.
Yeah, I think they thought Henderson was just going to blow it out, especially after that Venezuela story came out. I think they were like, well, that's it. Like, this guy's toast. Forget about it.
They were worried about other races that we'll talk about too, but they were very concerned about that. And it was actually kind of a subdued atmosphere there for the party that's winning most of the races, and many of them by acclamation. But when the last precinct reported, and it was reported, and the margins were finalized, there was an audible sigh of relief in that room because they were shocked that it was that close. But I will say this. I mean, I was talking to Martin Daniel, who's the chair of the local Republican Party, and asked him about, you know, that outcome, the margin, and, you know, and all. He said, well, basically, we still won.
Yeah, and they did.
And they did. And there was a Republican next to him when I was talking. I did not know this woman at all, but when I was walking up to Martin, she was saying it's only 5,000 votes or whatever, 4,500 votes. She said, but I'll take it. It's a win, and
right.
and that was kind of the thing. But Daniel also said, we've got to do a better job, and one of the and a lot of that goes to the down ballot races. The big transformation there was on the school board.
Yeah,
where Catherine Bike, who is a Democrat and won 4 years ago in a seat that normally had recently been Republican, was very kind of an up in the air seat. She was running against a Republican who was not a culture warrior, which was kind of unusual for a school board race in Knox County this year. But she easily won her re-election, and then there was the 9th district, and that was the one that flipped, and Randy Jenkins defeating Bill Sofield, who was a Republican. That had been a Republican seat. Sofield was the primary challenger from the right, who defeated Christie, who's longtime holder of that seat. Jesse, what did you think about the school board outcome?
Yeah, well, I thought the 9th district was really interesting because there's been a sense for several election cycles now that in the local races, county commission and school board, that, well, the 9th district could be in play because the area, the 9th district is South Knox County. The areas of that district that are in the city, South Knoxville, have been trending more and more Democratic. But the areas outside the city, which is where most of the growth is happening, new subdivisions along John Sevier Highway and so forth, has been pretty solidly Republican, and that has kept Republicans winning those races. The Democrats had not until last week won a race anytime recently in the 9th district. There have been Democrats in the 9th district sometime in the past, but not in the last couple of decades. And that was why I still kind of thought, like with Christie losing in the primary, that seemed to me to be the best case scenario for the Democrats being able to pick up the seat, because she lost to a candidate who was further to the right. It wasn't, it's just not clear, like, how far to the right is South Knox County. But the most recent indicator was they elected Andy Fox, super far-right culture warrior, to county commission just 2 years ago. So it didn't necessarily seem like that was going to be disqualifying. But it was. I talked to Jen. I was at the Democrats party Thursday night, which for whatever reason was at the Embassy Suites in Cedar Bluff. Democrats, can you try to do something downtown next time? But its vibe, I think, was very different than the Republican vibe, because even though it became pretty clear early on they were not going to win county-wide seats, the overall trends were good for the Democrats, and they were energized. They were happy. Like, that was a room full of very happy people pretty much all night long, as soon as the early vote numbers came in. And in talking to Jenkins about it, because I asked her, well, do you think this is because of specific concerns in the 9th district? Like, what were you hearing from people when you went out to talk to them, or people looking for new schools or whatever? And she said, yes, the 9th district has needs and there's things people want. But she said the number one thing she heard about from people was school vouchers. And people don't like school vouchers. And she said she had multiple people tell her, I'm a Republican, I mostly vote Republican, but I don't think school board members serving the public schools should be people who support vouchers. And she thought that was actually the single biggest issue that kind of pushed her over. And it is really interesting because Bike's margin went. She won by less than 200 votes 4 years ago, and this time she won by I think she got like 52 to 53% of the vote, which is still, the 4th district looks like it's still kind of close. The Democrats would need to win several more cycles there before you could say it was like a safe Democratic district. But she improved on her performance from 4 years ago. She said what she heard in the 4th district was vouchers, but also very specifically. And the 4th district is West Knoxville, from Sequoia Hills, kind of out through Rocky Hill, includes West Hills all the way out to Bluegrass. It's an affluent district and a highly educated district. And she said what she heard about in particular was book bans and book removals. And it probably didn't help the Republicans. The whole blow up over Roots, the Alex Haley book being removed from Knox County shelves in May and then being, having to be returned there. And like that got a lot of people's attention. And so, it was just interesting to me that a lot of times when you talk to candidates, they'll say, well, I was just focused on like the basics, and that's what people want. And obviously, like all of these candidates were talking about practical things that they want to do in the schools. But that both of them pointed to these two issues, the book bans and school vouchers that have been pushed from the right statewide and in Knox County. And there was pushback against them.
Yeah.
People don't like those. They're not popular. And that shouldn't be too big a shock. Book bans in particular, like if you look at either statewide polls in Tennessee or national polls, like Americans just don't like book bans.
No.
Book bans never poll well anywhere. And I think that those things factored into it. And then, of course, you have just like your broader political environment, which seems to also be true at the national level. Of course, we'll see in November that is trending toward the Democrats for a whole host of reasons. And so I think all these things kind of stacked on top of each other. But the net result of this is that Democrats have gained a seat on the school board for the last 3 school board election cycles running. So they went from, initially there were a couple of independents, but basically they went from having 2 Democrats to 3 Democrats to 4 Democrats, and now they're going to have 5 Democrats. That's been like a nonstop cycle of gains. And it's certainly a trend that I'm sure the Republicans aren't happy about. And it will be very interesting to see what it means to have a Democratic majority on the school board. You can assume that we're not going to be hearing a lot. Like if there's any culture war stuff that gets brought forward, it would be from the Republican minority on the board. But they're not probably going to have the votes to do much of that kind of stuff. And also, based on these results, maybe they'll decide that that's not really a politically profitable way for them to go.
One thing that's interesting is you're talking about that, and Democrats, of course, being very excited, I think, about Bike's margin, which was 5 points in that district. And it's interesting the difference in perspective, because Democrats were delighted that Cat Bike won by 5 percentage points in that race. Republicans were alarmed that Betsy Henderson only won by 5 votes.
Right.
They're 5 percentage
well,
points.
because those lines are basically like intersecting.
Yeah.
And, one thing we could mention about the county mayor's race is the drop in the Republican margin in just the last 3 cycles. Glenn Jacobs' first run in 2018, he won by more than 30 points.
Yeah.
And then when Jacobs ran for re-election in 2022, he got 56% of the vote, which was a pretty big drop. He was up well over 60% in 2018. He dropped down to basically a 10 to 11 point margin against Debbie Helsley in 2022, which that felt like a good showing for the Democrats at that point. But that was also that was a very low turnout year. Republicans didn't have anything much to motivate them. There were no competitive statewide primaries to draw them out like there was yesterday or last Thursday. And I think that for Democrats going from a 30-point margin to a 10 to 11 point margin to a 5-point margin, like that's a trajectory they like, and obviously it's one that the Republicans are not happy about.
And I think just a glimpse of the future on that is that goes into it's going to be easier for them to recruit some candidates to run for mayor in the future, because now it's a real conversation about winning a seat instead of this is a statement campaign.
Right. We need you to be the sacrificial lamb, which often in the past, that's kind of what these countywide races have been for Democrats.
Right. So I think that's the most interesting thing on that trajectory you're talking about, as far as who does that put in play that might otherwise not have touched it in the next cycle.
Well, and one thing too, and this is something we probably ought to look into a little bit more closely. Be interesting anyway. This all coincides with the rapid growth in population, which is almost entirely from in-migration, not from natural, the birth and death cycle. And a lot of in-migration, a lot of that to the city as well, in the last few years, especially the last 5 years, this has coincided with this. And Daniel kind of addressed that a little bit too when I spoke with him, the GOP chair, in that, he said, we need to do a better job talking to people who've recently moved here to let them know what great things the Republican Party has done and will do, and that may be it's certainly a tantalizing coincidence, or at least a compelling coincidence.
On the point, it struck me yesterday when I went to go vote in my local precinct here that it wasn't like a majority of the number of cars, but there were a number of cars that I noticed without state plates on them in the parking lot that were going in to vote. And I see it all the time in the neighborhood and stuff like that, but just like in my recollection, I don't think I've ever seen an out-of-state plate when I went to vote before yesterday. And
it's interesting because the most what has seemed like the most obvious effect of that growth, in terms of people who you see, people who show up at public meetings. We saw this a lot during the pandemic. People standing up saying, "I just moved here from California, and I'm like these very strong conservative, right wing." Immigrants coming in migrants. I guess they're not technically immigrants if they're coming from California, although they tend to describe themselves as refugees. But that has, it's kind of felt like, well, a lot of this growth, it's those people coming into like Hardin Valley and West Knox County, and maybe pushing the county Republican Party farther to the right. But we don't know. Those may just be the most vocal and visible new residents, but we might have a lot of other new residents who are not of that ilk at all.
Well, and of course that's pretty much standard as far as humans go, in that it is it's really a small number of residents, new or old, who actually get up and speak and get active and everything else. And when we talk about, the low turnout at 33%, and we're sitting there going, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
For us.
Sadly.
For us, that's pretty good. And but there are, a lot of people who are moving here, apparently, or possibly. I don't want to.
It's slowed down a little bit.
Well, but I don't want to say for certain that that's the reason Democrats are getting
right.
Their margins are shrinking, is that these people who are moving here are voting for Democrats. But it is a coincidence.
Yeah, those things have happened at the same time.
Yes, and so is there causation there? I don't know. There certainly is correlation.
Yeah.
So anyway, which kind of brings us to the county commission races, and the county commission. Same phenomenon that you were talking about with the school board, in that Democrats have gradually added seats. The last 2 years ago, we had Shane Jackson won in the fourth district, which added a third Democrat to the board, which for a while had reliably two Democrats. Before that, there was only reliably won.
Right. There was a period in the not distant past where there were 10 Republicans and 1 Democrat on county commission.
And then he won his election 2 years ago, and this year, Brandon Huckabee won in the 3rd district, which is a West Knox County district. Some city precincts, some county precincts, and it was a purple district. Gina Oster, who is the current representative, just barely won it 4 years ago, and she was defeated barely in the primary by a culture warrior, Sherry Super, a ultra right wing culture warrior, and which set up this interesting dynamic in this race, because one of the things that she had talked about in her cultural battles was fighting against the degenerate LGBT agenda,
right?
And Huckabee is openly gay,
married, mm-hmm.
Enjoys a drag show. Apparently, says he does, he's,
although he does not do drag himself, which was one of the things that there was a sort of cascade of anti-gay smears against Huckabee that you could see on social media, including that he is a drag queen himself, and he came out and said, like, I'm fine with drag queens, I just I'm not one.
And that was really interesting, was he didn't, and one of the things that was obvious about this entire thing is, he didn't just, he didn't go out and beat his chest as, you need to vote for me because if you don't, you're intolerant because I'm gay. And
it was really incidental to his campaign.
Yeah. I mean, he was, when you talked to him about his campaign, it was about, hey, I'm a banker, and I think we need to invest in this, and things like that. And but when he was attacked, online.
Some of that stuff got pretty ugly.
He got really ugly, and he would respond to it. He would go on and say, "Hey, I think there was one where one of the fundraisers that he was involved in was a drag show fundraiser for his campaign, and I think it was Andy Fox who posted something, and Huckabee goes on there, is that all you got? That that I'm gay and I drag show fundraiser? What?
And I enjoy a theatrical form that millions of Americans also enjoy, and that has had a long running hit TV show and everything. Yeah. And Huckabee, I think Huckabee ran a very good campaign. I think he was a very good candidate. He's very articulate. He's very well spoken. He's affable. He kind of he gives off and also he mentioned to me when I was interviewing him Thursday night that he listens to this podcast. So, hi Brandon. But he's he presented himself as just like a guy who wants to show up and kind of take care of the basic business of county government, where Super, who first of all did very few personal appearances outside of Republican club circles and so forth. She didn't show up for debates and forums for the most part. And she ran this very online, very right-wing campaign full of sort of weird AI generated imagery. There was one image of her as the Katniss character from the Hunger Games, like she was going to go out. It was unclear who exactly she was supposed to be fighting against. And of course, she had either the benefit or the baggage of her association with Moms for Liberty, which is definitely a group that a lot of people have strong opinions about. And, I think Huckabee's basic case was, let's not do that. Let's not make county government be about, banning books or beating up on gay people or immigrants or anybody else. And let's take care of our roads and infrastructure and schools and everything. And it was obviously effective in that district. And so now we have the 3rd district that's again, you look at the election cycles. 4 years ago, Gina Oster quite narrowly won and kept it in Republican hands. Then 2 years ago on the school board, Pat Fontenot Ridley, a Democrat, won the 3rd district, also beating a former Moms for Liberty director. So former heads of Moms for Liberty are 0 for 2 in the 3rd district. They might not want to run any more of them, at least not in that district. And so now the 3rd district, like the 4th district, is definitely solidly purple. And at the moment, both of those districts are going to have Democratic school board members and county commissioners.
They're bluish purple.
Yeah.
Now. And,
well, and
and one
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. One thing, too, that I don't think is you can overlook is in the primary, the Republican primary, super vilified Oster.
Yeah.
I mean, she actually probably attacked Oster, at least herself, more than she did Huckabee. I think her proxies really went after Huckabee, but she really went after Oster, and it was bitter, and it was tough, and Oster was none too pleased that it was that way. And in fact, that was one of the reasons that the Republicans had a string of text messages about, don't endorse a Democrat or there will be hell to pay. And she and Larson J. and Kim Frazier, who lost in the Republican primary for mayor, were the obvious targets of this, and possibly Terry Hill. But the more, I want to call them pragmatic Republicans, because Republicans get really mad when you call them moderates. But the more
establishment,
establishment or pragmatic, I think is a good thing, because I think they think they're conservative, and they are, compared to most Democrats. But a lot of them were turned off by that, I think. And now, whether they actually went to the polls, they may have gone to vote in primaries and not voted in the district race because they couldn't bring themselves to vote for a Democrat, but weren't going to vote for Sherry Super. And however you slice that pie, it didn't do Super any favors that the primary campaign was so bitter.
Well, and I think we have to mention the interesting role here of frequent character we talk about on the podcast, Eric Wyatter, conservative consultant who has put his stamp pretty firmly on the Knox County Republican Party over the last 8 years or so. He has had a series of candidates run and win, and some of his candidates did win on Thursday. But there were these two races, the 3rd District Commission race and the 9th District School Board race, where he was successful in running pretty far-right candidates against Republican incumbents in the primary and beating them. Bill Sofield was one of his candidates, and Sherry Super was one, and they both defeated the sitting chairs of the school board and county commission, Christy Christie and Gina Oster. So, feather in his cap in winning the primaries, but then both of those candidates turned around and lost in the general election, which is not what you're supposed to do if you're a Republican mounting like an insurgent primary campaign to take out an incumbent.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, then you're supposed to actually hold on to the seat. Yeah. Because the net result of that is both of those seats right now, as of today, are held by Republicans, and both of those seats next month in September are going to be held by Democrats. And it was Wyatter's candidates who lost the general elections. Yeah. Now, he was successful in the 7th District commission race, where one of his candidates won in a contested primary and went on to win. Same with the 10th district race with Justin Kofer, beat Kimberly Glenn in the Republican primary. And both of those, the 7th district is very heavily Republican, so the Republican candidate was definitely going to win there. But what I think it shows, and who knows what Wyatter or anybody else in the Republican Party, including the people who don't like Wyatter, which there's a large number of, think about all this or how it will affect their strategy going forward. But, it looks like running, doing a challenge from the right in a district that is purplish or is a swing district could be self-defeating, and it was in two pretty significant cases.
Yeah, the old cliche, win the battle, lose the war.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. And, you mentioned the at-large seat 10, and that was Justin Cofer was the Republican who Wyatter worked for. He only got 50.8% of the vote.
Which is very low for a Republican county.
Really low, and for in a countywide race. Now there were three candidates. The Democrat was Katina Sharp, who was who's a minister in Powell. Who's a lesbian minister in Powell, and she also did not make a huge deal out of that, but she doesn't hide from it either. Their church has been criticized for flying pride flags, as a matter of fact. But she got 45% of the vote. They're going, oh, well, that's a 5-point difference. But there was a third candidate, Ronan Cunningham, who was very young, didn't really mount much of a campaign. His name was essentially just on the ballot. He talked a good game. He's very enthusiastic when you talk to him, but he didn't, he didn't raise any money, didn't spend any money, all that stuff. He got 4% of the vote, and you almost sit there and look at it, and as he was the alternative for Republicans who didn't want to vote for Cofer for a reason we'll get to in a second, but also couldn't bring themselves to vote for a Democrat.
Yeah,
and so they've that's what it looks like.
I think so. And somewhat similar dynamic in the 11th district, the other at-large commission race as well, where, again, you had an independent candidate who took a couple percent. And I think in both of those, it's like, if you're looking for the Republican defectors who weren't happy with the Republican candidates, that's probably where you look.
And David Villard in the seat 11 race ran even less of a campaign than Cunningham did. Yeah. Anyway, and one thing about Cofer, of course, there were probably Republicans looking for an alternative because Cofer, during the midst of the campaign, the news emerged that he had been fired from a job at the Brushy Mountain or Morgan County Regional Correction Facility. An incident, I mean, the details aren't really clear, but he was involved drugs and fraternizing with inmates.
Yeah.
And he violated all kinds of policies, probably state laws. The drugs in question, or you're required to have a prescription for. So obviously, apparently, he did not have a prescription for them, and things like steroids and that sort of thing. It wasn't like he was smuggling in cocaine or anything, but still. News came that he was fired several years, I think 2017, I believe it was, for that. And there may have been Republicans that gave them pause and sent them to Sharp or whatever. But so he wasn't the purest of candidates that you want, but he did get a majority of the vote, but a very, very slim majority. And you just we're not used to a Republican in Knox County getting less than 51% of the vote. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, no, well, and I think to Seth's point about what this means looking ahead for Democrats is I do think it'll make it easier for them to recruit, sort of high caliber candidates, maybe people who are well known in one arena or another in Knox County. And it means that, those of us who cover these races and pontificate about them and so forth, I mean, again, like every election cycle is different. You always need to see more cycles to really understand, is something a blip? Is it a trend? And so forth. But I think probably for both Democrats and Republicans, the lesson from this cycle is going to be everybody has to treat countywide races as if they are competitive, which would be a change because mostly we haven't treated countywide races as if they're competitive for about 20 years.
Yeah. One of the interesting reactions, I talked to in the Republican Party, talked to, Martin, we've talked about what he said. But on Friday, the local Republican Party Executive Committee is meeting. We're recording this mid-afternoon on Friday. This is going to happen Friday late afternoon, early evening. They're convening a meeting to discuss the activities of two county commissioners, Kim Frazier, who we mentioned earlier, who ran for county mayor and lost in the primary to Henderson, and Terry Hill, who preceded Henderson on the school board in the Hardin Valley area seat, and represents the same area on county commission, has clashed with Henderson multiple times over the past couple of years.
Pretty strongly, yeah. Like Hill went to a school board meeting to chastise Henderson at one point.
Yeah,
she has not been shy about it.
Yeah, for supporting vouchers.
For supporting school vouchers.
There was, and I mentioned earlier, there was concern among Republicans that they would endorse Beau Hawk over Henderson, so there was that suspicion already. Then there was an event hosted by the Hardin Valley
Planning
Advocates, and which Frazier is
she founded it.
She founded that, and Hill, of course, represents that area. They invited the candidates there. Hill and Frazier, of course, were there. So was Beau Hawk. Henderson wasn't. Beau Hawk was there, and somebody took pictures of them with Hawk,
all smiling,
and the way you do when somebody points a camera at you and says "cheese," you smile, and they did. Now, I think that was interpreted by a lot of people as an endorsement. I had not heard that either one of them.
Yeah, they did not come out and endorse. But what you also didn't hear was either of them, at least I didn't hear either of them coming out and saying, of course I support the Republican candidate. This is a gross, misrepresentation. I don't think they said that either. Yeah.
But anyway, the executive committees basically called them to the carpet, and they're going to have this meeting. I think they're going to. I don't know what is going to end up happening. We'll be reporting it that we find out. But they're which is kind of an interesting thing. I mean, the Republicans just lost a seat. Their majority is still healthy. It's still 7-4
on county commission.
On county commission. But Hill. I mean, Frazier's leaving county commission. She's she ran for county mayor, didn't win. She didn't run for she was rotating off anyway. But Hill has 2 more years to serve,
mm-hmm.
and anything that they do to alienate her. Whatever she may have done to alienate other Republicans, whatever they do to alienate her, she can remember when she cast votes on commission.
Yeah,
and that would get if she quote unquote caucuses with the Democrats, that's 5 votes.
Yeah,
and then we've got a real a real balanced
county commission,
which would take a lot of finesse to get things done that hasn't been required in a very long time.
Yeah, and you add to that the specifics that Henderson and Hill do not get along and do not like each other. Hill is not going to be, I think, particularly inclined to be super helpful and cooperative with the incoming county mayor. And yeah, I mean, if you think about the new makeup we're going to have of county commission, we're going to have 4 Democrats who will not always vote together. And people don't always vote along party lines. Sometimes issues break differently, but still, they're more likely to caucus together than not, especially on, certain kinds of controversial issues. Then there's going to be 4 commissioners who are affiliated with Eric Wyatter and the farther right wing, because you've already got Andy Fox on there, along with Angela Russell, and now you're adding Barry Beeler in the 7th District and Justin Kofer at large. So that's 2 blocks of 4, and then you have 3 more Republicans, Hill and Garrett Holt, who's the other new at-large commissioner, who he's definitely not part of sort of the Wyatter coalition. He's always kind of presented himself as, he's even actually used the word moderate to describe himself in the past. So is not necessarily going to be inclined to be part of the Andy Fox group. And then Adam Thompson in the 8th District, who has been, if he's been affiliated with anybody on commission, it's been Kim Frazier, because he kind of also came out of the planning advocacy world. And that makes for an interesting, so we got sort of two blocks of 4 and then 3 kind of floating votes there. Like you're saying, for anybody who wants to get anything through commission, whether it's a county mayor or a developer trying to get something approved or whatever, there's going to be some diplomacy required to stitch together that 6-vote majority for sure.
Right. Well, in addition to the local county race, and there were other county races, the county things that we aren't going to be able to get to. But in addition to these county races, there were the state legislature. The primaries for the November election were held. There were 2 races in the Republican primary that were competitive in particular that were interesting.
Yeah. So 2 Republican incumbents, State Senator Richard Briggs and State Representative Elaine Davis, both had Republican primary challengers coming from opposite directions, essentially. Briggs had a repeat, Kent Morrell, who had run against him in the Republican primary 4 years ago, basically running against Briggs from the right, because Briggs is, I don't know how Briggs characterizes himself. He's a conservative Republican, but he has been, let's say, an independent thinker pretty reliably in the legislature. He votes with the Republican majority more often than not, but he's always been a skeptic of school vouchers, for example. He's very pro public health. So during the pandemic, he was one of the people actually taking the side of sort of like the public health establishment. And a lot of Republicans farther to the right have been unhappy with Briggs for a long time. And so Morrell ran again, this time working with Eric Wyatter. And I think the hope was that, the time is ripe now to take out Briggs and turn that seat into a more, sort of fire-breathing right-wing bastion. And it just got nowhere at all. 4 years ago in 2022, Briggs got 66% of the vote and Morrell got 33% of the vote. Last week, Briggs got 66% of the vote. Morrell got 33%. The Republicans in State Senate District 7, I think, are happy with Richard Briggs, and they are put. He has a Democratic opponent in the fall. He would be favored there for sure, but he won that one pretty easily. Davis, who is Wyatter affiliated, is seeking her 3rd term in the state house representing District 18. She had a challenge from what you would have to call the sort of old school West Knoxville Republican establishment, Brent Jones, an attorney who was heavily, well-funded and supported by members of the Haslam family, members of the Clayton family, Raja Gibran, Wes Stowers.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, kind of like the old guard of traditional Knox County Republicanism, who have never liked Elaine Davis. They have supported other people against her in the past. They supported Janet Testerman against Davis 4 years ago. And so they made a pretty strong effort to take her out in the Republican primary. And again, that didn't really go anywhere. Davis won that race pretty easily, and she also has a Democratic opponent in the fall. That's going to be another rematch. She's running again against the Democrat Brian Goldberg. And I think Goldberg and the Democrats are going to be hoping that some of the same momentum that we've been seeing for Democrats in these other local races will carry over to November, and we'll find out in a few months. I
got to add to that because I remember talking about this 2 years ago when they first matched up, and because I am a District 18 resident or whatever, and I predicted District 18 was pushing further blue over the last couple of years. And if I recall correctly, it was the South Knox part that was always the concern.
Yeah,
South Knox was always a strong one. But then we have the South Knox school board race that just showed us it's maybe not as strong as it used to be.
It'd be very interesting to look at some of those precincts, which we will do next week. We'll have more analysis of all of this, but that's definitely something to look at.
And so I think it's more I thought it was more in play last year, but now I have evidence to say why I think it's more in play this year. That's all I really wanted to I wanted to claim rightness, but just ahead a little early.
Oh, speaking of rightness, I have to say something. My friend, longtime local political observer, sometime local political reporter, Dan Andrews. I don't know if anybody listening knows Dan, but he kind of floats around the local political scene, pops up now and again.
He's a gadfly in the nicest possible sense.
Yes.
He is. He's everywhere.
Dan's a good guy. He contacted me out of the blue the day before the election to tell me, and Dan, I should say, is not a partisan guy. He likes Republicans. He likes Democrats. I've never gotten the sense he's not particularly cheering for one party or another. But he wrote me and said, Beau Hawk's going to win. And I was like, I don't know, Dan. That's kind of a stretch. And he kind of rattled off some reasons that he thought Republicans were kind of back on their heels. And Beau Hawk did not win, but Dan wrote me the day after the election to say I was still closer than just about anybody else. And I was like, well, you were closer than me. So giving credit to Dan, he saw a close race there, and he was right. That race was a lot closer than a lot of people thought.
Do we want to see?
I think now's
a good time. Yes, that's right.
I'm going to claim that I got better. I think I'm going to claim right now that I did better than Dan did in my predictions.
That's right. So last week, if you weren't listening last week, we did all write down on scraps of paper our predictions in some of the close races. I think we predicted the winner and the vote amount for the winner, the vote percentage for the winner for county mayor, the 4th and 9th district school board races, and the 3rd district commission race. So let's see how we did.
Yes.
We got here.
Should we each take our own and we can read our own results?
I'll read them all. I have them.
Okay. I have the vote totals here.
Right. So let's start with Henderson. Scott predicted that, or with the county mayor, Scott predicted that Betsy Henderson would win with 55% of the vote.
And you know what? I started out at 53 and said, maybe a little 55.
I predicted Henderson would win with 57% of the vote, and my reasoning for this was that Jacobs won, like we said, with 56% 4 years ago in an election where the turnout favored Democrats. And so I just kind of, guessed that, Democrats will probably do okay. And honestly, 10 years ago, winning 43% of the vote in a countywide race would have looked pretty good for Democrats. And so I thought that might be what they did. So I predicted she would get 57%. Seth predicted that Henderson would win with 52% of the vote. He was only off by 0.5%.
Woot, woot. All right.
Yes.
Good call, Seth.
I win that. I win round one.
All right, so let's look at the 3rd District County Commission race. Scott, what was the actual percentage there?
Okay, the 3rd District County Commission race. Huckabee had 54.33%, and Super had 45 2/3.
Okay, so looking at this, we all predicted that Huckabee was going to win.
Okay.
I guess we all felt like the momentum was there, but all of us underestimated how much he would win by. Scott had Huckabee winning with 51%. I had Huckabee winning with 51%. Seth had Huckabee winning with 51%. We all thought Huckabee was going to win 51%, and he won 54%.
Yeah, he outperformed our anticipation. So,
the 4th District school board race, Scott, what were the percentages there?
okay, the 4th District, Catherine Bike got, let's call it 53% of the vote, and Ashley Sartell, the Republican, got 47%.
Okay, so on this one, Scott and I were actually pretty close. Scott had Bike winning with 52%. I had Bike winning with 52%. Seth thought that Bike was really going to blow it out.
I was feeling it.
Predicted a 60%
Woo!
win,
Pushing hard.
that would have been a lot.
Took a swing.
So yeah, Scott, you and I were relatively close.
Yeah,
we thought Bike would win
just
by a little bit more than she did last time.
We're just 88.85% low.
All right, so the scoreboard here going into our last race is I have 1 whole point, and you guys are sharing 0.5 point.
So in the 9th District school board race, this is one that we all got wrong. None of us really thought the Democrats were going to flip that seat. So we all had Bill Sofield winning. Scott predicted that he would get 53% of the vote. I predicted he would get 54% of the vote. Seth predicted he would get 55% of the vote. And instead, Scott, what did Brandy Jenkins get in that race?
She got 52%.
She got 52%.
So
Yeah, Sofield got 48. So
Yep.
So Scott said 51, then being the closest?
Yeah, he would be the closest.
I was the closest.
So
I
I
was
think
wrong, but I would be the closest.
But I still think you were the closest to being right.
He was at 53.
Right,
Yeah.
which gives you I think that gives you
point
the
and a
winner
half.
of our Knox County general election gamble-orama here.
So, you know, like
1.5 points.
on
right.
the actual sorry about that noise. I hit the microphone stand. On the actual outcomes, we were all pretty good. We all predicted 3 out of the 4 winners. We missed the 9th District, South Knox County, just because, you know, I think that's one where, again, people have been talking for a while, like, well, South Knox County could go for a Democrat, and that has seemed plausible, but none of us thought that was quite going to
actually
happen this
going
time.
to happen. Yeah,
I will buffer my wager on that one just a little bit. Of like, I paid zero attention. I had zero insight on that one. I was just guessing off of history.
Well, it's kind of refreshing that you admit that. So,
I was just guessing off of everything anyway. I was just saying like that one. I just didn't like. You know, I tried my best. I think like anybody else out there, I tried my best to keep up with at least my races, which makes my cat bike prediction even worse since that was one of my races in my district. But you know, that's it's a lot to keep up with.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, and also, like, it's just very... It's funny because, and Scott, I'm sure you run into this too, because we spend so much time paying attention to this, covering this, talking, like, we know who the candidates are, we know who's supporting them, we know what the vote totals were in the last election, all of these things. And so then people will ask us, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Who's going to win? And like, I always, anything I tell people, I always preface by saying, I'm wrong a lot.
yeah. Now, that's
Because-
one of the things about doing this for so many years, like we've done, is we know that we're just as likely to be wrong as we are to be right.
Well, because you're always kind of going on, well, what happened last time, and what are the vibes like, and you don't know who's actually going to show up to vote. You don't know where the energy is. I think we could have guessed that there was some Democratic energy just because that's been true across the country. We've seen individual races in red states, blue states, all over the place, where it has felt like for lots of reasons at the national level that we don't need to get into, but it has felt like there is some momentum and energy on the Democratic side. It's just hard to know, what does that actually look like? What form does it take? How many people is it? And so overall...
and East Tennessee has always seemed to me to be a little insulated from the national trends because, East Tennessee has always, or not always, and then there was... prehistory. But
there used to be dinosaurs.
But since the Civil War, East Tennessee has been solidly Republican, especially Knox County and surrounding areas. It's kind of Knox County is a donut, essentially, where it's the Republican in the suburbs, more Democratic in the city,
and more of the population is in the suburbs,
and more of the population's in the suburbs. I mean, we're just so used to that, and that it's really and it's really been insulated. I mean, during the Great Depression, when Franklin Roosevelt got elected president 4 times, brought in the Tennessee Valley Authority, all this stuff was going on. The 2nd Congressional District was Republican. And it was during the Cold War. It was during, all throughout our history since
it was Republican War. When most of Tennessee was still Democratic / Dixiecratic.
Yeah, and which was for most of the 20th century. So, and the last half of the 19th century. But it's kind of odd to see that is appears to be having some sway here now.
Yeah.
So, before we leave the election, and we are leaving the election, at least temporarily.
We have another one in just a few months. I hate to tell you.
Yeah. But we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Sheriff-elect Brent Gibson, who did not have a competitive race. He won the Republican primary, did not have a Democratic opponent. He's been sheriff-elect for several months now. But he also has not really publicly made statements about the controversial move by outgoing Sheriff Tom Spangler to expand their use of flock license plate reading cameras and integrate it with other cameras into the equivalent of the city's real-time crime center. They've got a grant, built it out, then told commission about it, kind of under the radar on that, and there's been a lot of pushback. A lot of people are really angry. The type of cameras they use are called flock cameras. Flock Safety is the company. Their cameras have been involved in lots of controversial things, especially when police departments across the country have misused the data quite a bit. There's so many of them. Of course, there are plenty of good actors out there, but there are a lot of problems with flock cameras and the way that law enforcement uses the data, and more so than you would think any company could survive, but they have. But Gibson, Gibson is inheriting this essentially, and the current the Spangler administration, Spangler himself said, well, Gibson's going to make the decision because he'll be in office. Spangler's leaving office September 1st, and Gibson's coming on. We're leaving it up to him. Gibson's been quiet about it.
He didn't have an opponent. He didn't have to say anything.
He didn't have to say anything. And so, but he was at the Republican soiree election night. Was one of the few got lots of applause, and they actually stopped talking for a few minutes to listen to what he had to say. But he mentioned in his remarks to the crowd that the sheriff's office has been controversial lately. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to fix all these problems.
Yeah, besides
All
the
well and
flock
good.
cameras, we could mention that controversy includes a dozen current, former, or affiliate members of the sheriff's office being indicted on federal charges.
Yeah, that's true. A minor thing like that. But anyway, but that was it. It was kind of vague. Oh, well, I'm going to fix things and I'm going to be transparent about it. So after he spoke and talked to a bunch of his well-wishers, I grabbed him and grab him. He's a big, tough ex-football player. You don't grab the guy.
Don't grab the sheriff.
But I did. I was able to talk with him and ask him about that, and it's kind of interesting. He said that it kind of again was saying, okay, we're going to be a lot of people. His take on it is that people aren't educated about flock cameras. That there's a lot of misconceptions about them, about what they can do, what they can't do, what the rules are, what the policies are, that sort of thing. That's all true because the sheriff's office hasn't been forthcoming with them. But he says he's going to be more forthcoming. We'll see. And then he said basically, hey, I'm going to be working for the citizens of Knox County. What the citizens of Knox County want, that's what I'm going to provide them. Well, a lot of the citizens of Knox County do not want flock cameras.
Yeah.
And
I remain skeptical that anybody is going to be going out there either removing flock cameras or not installing the ones they've already bought.
Yeah, and one thing that then he went on to say, we can't solve crime today without flock cameras. And you can't do it without flock cameras. And he said no. So he said that modern policing requires it, and that kind of surveillance capabilities, and that people don't realize how much crime is solved by flock cameras, and that discontinuing the use of flock cameras altogether would set law enforcement back 30 years.
Well,
so
kind of tells you where he's coming from. It'd be interesting to see how that conversation goes. I think one thing that's interesting about that whole issue, and maybe this will come up in the further discussion that the county is going to have about this, but we're at an interesting point in time for people to be making this kind of big public safety case, because crime rates are really,
way down,
really low. Like, crime rates are approaching historic lows in Knoxville, Knox County, and much of the country. And so it's not the ideal time for somebody to be trying to make a case that, like, we really need this to keep people safe, because, like, people are pretty safe.
Yeah. Especially they can't, it makes it difficult to say, we need to expand this.
Yeah.
In order to keep people safe. Well, if you haven't been expanding it, and they've been using it for years, but if you haven't been expanding it and the crime rate's dropping, what's the deal?
Yeah.
And so anyway, we will move on to,
Speaking of law enforcement,
yes, this is in the city. However, also on Thursday, the big news, city mayor Indya Kincannon held a press conference with Police Chief Paul Noel to announce that Noel had been suspended for a month without pay,
which is going to cost him like $18,000,
around $18,000. Suspended. He'll be suspended a month without pay for sending inappropriate text messages to a female subordinate. They were described over and over as flirtatious and sexually suggestive, and that I have read them, and that pretty much jobs there.
Although sort of mild on, I feel like we're so used to these sort of text message scandals where it's like really raunchy stuff, or, pictures of genitalia and things like that. And this wasn't really at that level.
Oh, no. I read through them all. 88 pages of screenshots of text messages. a lot of them were not suggestive, were not flirtatious. A lot of them were, and they were flirtatious. They weren't explicit. There was nothing about suggested sexual acts that either one of them said that they wanted to perform on the other or have the other perform on them or anything like that. The closest that came to that is Noel told this officer that she was sexy. That was
which is obviously inappropriate for a police chief talking to a subordinate.
Like, yes, let's not gloss over the inappropriateness of this. Noel did exchange it. They went back and forth. Like I said, a lot of it was about routine things. She wanted to be assigned to the mounted patrol. Talked to him about that. One thing that came out about this was, she did not ask for favors. He did not offer favors. In fact, about the mounted patrol thing, he said, well, if you qualify, I'll, support you in getting, transferred over there. But he made a real point of saying, if you qualify. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't going to get involved in that. And she didn't ask him to either. They talked a lot about her patrol duties in Montgomery Village. She's very officer, and they named the officer. I'm not going to you can gloss over that. Her name's Jasmine Reed. She's been in the department for 6 years. So she's quite a bit younger than Noel. She's a highly regarded patrol officer in Montgomery Village. Been a lot of connections there. But they also talked a lot about getting together and working out in as she said, she had access to a gym where she could get a key so they could work out after hours. There was some suggestive innuendos that went back and forth between them there. They talked about her traveling with him out of town. And they talked,
which again did not actually happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, here's the thing. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
In real life. These were all, their relationship was pretty much exclusively text. They had one phone conversation that came out during the investigation. They had 0 face-to-face conversations. This was pretty much all. Now, previously, before they started this thread, he'd gone on a ride along with her, which, he does with officers all the time. He goes out and rides with patrol officers, and they, and does things like that. But, and a lot of these seem to be kind of the things that, these messages seem to be the kind of things that, you would expect him to do with officers, regardless of gender or sexual attraction. However, there were a bunch of those that it was pretty obvious that he did think she was sexy, and she did flirt back with him, and so it went back and forth. But that one of the things was that came out of what happened was there was another internal affairs investigation involving Officer Reed. A woman had made a complaint about Reed's behavior. They were looking into that. The Office of Professional Responsibility was looking into that. This person who made the complaint, who was an acquaintance of Officer Reed, said that she had a string of text messages, suggestive ones, with Noel. And so the office did exactly what you would think that they would do, and what Noel has preached that they do, is they went, okay, we've got to take some kind of action. Noel was the chief, so they went to the mayor and said, here's what we found out. And so she got Charles Swanson, the law director, to hire a third party, a law firm, to take a look at doing the investigation. They did. They questioned Noel. They questioned Reed. They talked to lots of people about this. and that's where they got all this. And Reed and Noel, for different reasons, said the same thing. So it's pretty much jibed. But she said that she went along. She was flirting and going along with him because he was the chief, and he had power over her career, which is absolutely true. Which is why there are rules against bosses doing these kinds of things. Right.
That's the thing. Like, even if this was, completely consensual between both of them, and then when she got asked about it, she kind of said, well, no, like, I felt pressured. Like, who knows? But that's the thing is, because of the inequality in that relationship, the power difference in that relationship, you can't ever know.
Yeah.
Like, there kind of is no such thing as a consensual relationship in that kind of dynamic in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was, what flew in the 1960s doesn't necessarily fly in the 2020s. So anyway, Noel admitted to everything. He wasn't that he denied any of this stuff. He admitted it and talked about it. He said he never intended to actually do anything. And they never did. Apparently never did. So, it's, kind of, thing that once the mayor got the report in, she got it on Tuesday, and she made this announcement on Thursday. I'm assuming on Wednesday she spent a lot of time meeting with Noel, talking about this situation. I don't know.
I do think the timing of
it to coincide with the election.
Yeah, coming out with a story like this at 1:00 in the afternoon on election day pretty much guaranteed that, well, it was going to be the top story on all the local news sites for about 5 hours, and then it was going to get buried by a whole incoming waterfall of election news.
In fact,
that was definitely deliberate. We all know that.
Yeah, one of the things I did later in the afternoon after I was working on my story and pretty much finished with it. I hadn't finished completely with it, but pretty much finished with it. I did decide, I did go around and check some of the other websites. They were all election stuff.
Yeah.
It was hard to find. They all had something about Noel.
Sure.
But it was hard to find.
It got moved down the page pretty quickly, which, look, I've
or
been
back
a city
off the page to the local page.
Yeah, so. I've been a city communications director, and I do understand the kind of strategy that goes into that.
But anyway, the regardless of the timing, it was very interesting. Obviously, Noel has been really Kincannon's signature hire.
Yeah.
And when she hired him from New Orleans, was it 4 years ago? And he has he came in, he promised to be a change agent. He would transform the department and the culture. That appears to be the case. In fact, it's the case to the point where they went to the mayor with a problem with the chief, which I cannot imagine any other that happening under any other police chief we've had in a long time. That's what he kind of preached is, okay, if you see someone doing the wrong thing, you need to step up and do the right thing. It's not ratting on your pal. It's making us a better department. And that's
safeguarding the integrity of the department.
Yeah. And so having Noel do this was, hit pretty hard. I mean, she was, he didn't meet the standards, and she was so disappointed in him. And
Kincannon's had sort of a rough last year or so. I mean, she had the sort of twin defeats last fall of the proposed sales tax increase, and then the proposed project at Chilhowie Park that generated a lot of controversy and ill will. And as you're saying, I think the police department has been a relative bright spot. There's not been a lot of controversies. There's been some, but not been a lot of controversies about the police department since Noel arrived. And also crime rates, as we were just saying, crime rates are way down, which is hard to know exactly why, but that's always something that makes a police chief and a mayor look good. And so to have that turned into this kind of embarrassing black mark. I'm sure Kincannon was not happy about it for all sorts of reasons.
Mm-hmm. And so she was she's visibly angry at the whole situation during the press conference. But she didn't like yell or anything, but you can tell she did not want to be there. Just by her body language and all. But no, I will say that Noel did step up at the press conference and said, "Hey, I was wrong. I set a higher standard. I've always said that, the higher the rank, the more you need to take responsibility, and I'm going to take responsibility." And he apologized to everyone there. But that, I thought he was about to apologize to the media for having call us out early on election day to do this extra story. But
he should have.
I'm bitter about that. and Noel listens to our podcast as well. I don't know if he'd be listening this week because he's probably dealing with some personal matters right now. It was the suspension, 1 month suspension, took effect on Thursday, right after the press conference.
Real quick, who's running the police department right now?
David Powell, who's the assistant chief, has been for a couple of years under Noel. I think he's been at KPD 3 decades or so, and a long time KPD hand. Grew up in the department, so he's there. Noel expressed lots of confidence in him. Kincannon expressed lots of confidence in him. You don't survive in the police department to get to that rank for that that long without doing something right. So even if that's just inter office politics, but anyway, Powell will be running the department. Obviously, it's a month. He's not going to make any changes or anything, but he will be there in the office. And but Noel, he said, I need to. And the other thing he said was, it's one thing for me to say I'm sorry, but I've got to, I've got to prove myself in order to regain trust. And that was a big theme of what he was saying, is he wanted to. He knew that it would take a long time. He knows that. He knows that people won't trust him immediately when he comes back in September. But he pledged to work to regain that trust. Meanwhile, Reed is still employed at KPD. No retaliation against her so far. I shouldn't say so far like it's going to happen. I don't know, but she's still an officer with KPD. You mentioned earlier there was this case involving her, an internal affairs, an internal investigation is still involving her. That has not been resolved. I think one thing is if with Noel gone, there's certain and he won't be able to interfere if that was anybody's concern. And that is actually the third, if you want to count the Noel investigation, the third involving her in less than a year. She was suspended herself for 120 hours after
for doing a lot more than sending text messages with another officer.
Yeah, she had an affair with a lieutenant. It's also not the first supervisor she's been linked to, but she had an affair with a lieutenant who was married to a captain. Part of the investigation that came out, WBR did a good report on it. I can't take any credit for doing that. It's just that was what they'd already reported. They had trysts inside the storage closet at KPD, and camper that is used by the SWAT team at KPD, and she got into it with the lieutenant who was the wife,
the captain, who's the lieutenant.
I'm sorry,
right?
the captain who was the wife of
as KPD terms.
And the lieutenant had retired, retired before all this investigation came out. Anyway, the investigation came out. She was one of the things was that she was she violated the code of conduct. She had sex with another employee at work, on the job, and then the captain also was reprimanded for her actions in confronting her and everything else. Very messy situation there.
Well, and also, presumably Noel knew about all of that and is still continuing on this text conversation.
Yeah, he did know about that, and one of the things is, because you always think, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit before, okay, she's going to get favors or ask for favors or get favors, and he's going to intervene in her behalf on things. They actually mentioned that case that was coming up, and she apologized to him for getting involved, and but he said, I'm not going to help you. I can't do anything. You don't. And she didn't ask really, but he told her, kind of preemptively, hey, can't do anything, but when you get on your feet, keep your nose clean, that kind of thing. And but the very fact that they were having these conversations was her nose wasn't clean because of that.
I think you can say it goes to judgment.
Yeah. So anyway, so Noel is out for a month. David Powell is in, and we don't know obviously what long-term ramifications there are from this, but it certainly hurts him in the wallet, that's for sure. And
and I think it raises some questions about his future at KPD, because Kincannon is clearly not going to, at least at the moment, she doesn't look like she's going to dismiss him or anything. But Kincannon only has a year and a half left in office, and next year, once we get through this year's elections, we're going to be back into a city election cycle where we're going to have a mayor's race. One of the things that always gets asked to city mayor candidates when they're running is what their opinion is of the police chief and whether they are going to keep them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, who knows? We don't even know who's going to run yet. But this is the kind of thing that maybe makes that kind of question a little more complicated for candidates to answer.
It certainly would. And Noel talked about, he needs to regain the trust of the officers who work for him in the police department. Obviously his family, because he mentioned his family several times, that he apologized to them, and he's going to have to work on family things, and that's what he's going to be. He said he was going to be doing over the next month. He also will be required to go through counseling that he's going to have to pay for, and leadership training, by the way, in addition to his getting losing the pay for the month. But he's going to have to regain the trust of the officers, regain the trust of the mayor, regain the trust of the public in general, and he's probably, I don't know if he's already thinking, but he probably at some point soon will be turning his thoughts to gaining the trust of whoever's running for mayor, because that would, whoever is the next mayor, his professional future is in their hands. Anyway, that is all we can talk about from last week. There is plenty of other stuff that happened. We're not going to get to it, obviously.
We need to clarify, though. It's not that all that happened last week is all that happened on Thursday.
That's all that happened on Thursday.
It was just Thursday. That's the entire episode is devoted to
all of the
Thursday.
news happened on Thursday. That's right.
It sure feels that way. Yeah. So anyway, but if you had subscribed to Compass, you would already know the other stuff that happened, because you'd get it in your inbox every morning with our newsletter, or go to our website and read longer in-depth stories. In fact, Friday's website had our largest content yet.
Yeah.
Because we had all these election stories, the Noel story and all that. These are all long stories that are on the website that aren't they're too long to be going into a newsletter blurb, and but you get your newsletter as well. Anyway, go to CompassKnox.com and there's subscription information there, and you can also check out some of our previous coverage that's not behind a paywall. See what we do. Anyway, we're moving on to what's going to happen next week. We can't stop talking about these new commissioners. They are going to have orientation that is open to the public for 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday in the City County Building, Thursday at the 911 Center on Bernard Avenue. They will be learning what it takes to be a commissioner. And I was thinking when I saw they were going to be doing that if you were wanting to run for commission sometime in the future, that would be a good time to go. That would be time well spent going there because it is open to the public. I believe it's Terry Hill and Larson J are going to be running the show there, doing the orientations, and so that'd be a good way to learn the ins and outs of being a commissioner, which are that's like any other job, maybe even worse, and that you don't really know what it entails. You actually do it. But anyway, that'll be Wednesday and Thursday. Also on Thursday is the monthly meeting of the Knox County Planning Commission. They have quite a few things on their agenda. They always have zonings, rezonings, various plans to approve, all of that. But among the things they're going to look at this week is the county had asked them to help develop a data center moratorium, which would be an update to the zoning code, which has to go through Planning Commission first. They're going to be taking that up. There's going to be a consideration of a townhouse development on Ebenezer Road, pretty big one that is getting some pushback out there. It's an area of mostly single-family houses, and in the county these days, if you propose a multifamily development anywhere near a single-family house subdivision, there's going to be pushback from somebody. And there's also in the city, there is a property on Loves Creek and Buffett Mill Road in North Knoxville that's received several redevelopment proposals. Now we've got a developer wanting to put in an 84-unit multifamily. I believe it's more of a townhouse condominium kind of setup there. But there is also the historic Alfred Buffett house on that property, the Buffett Mill Buffetts. And there had been previous iterations of plans there. There have been concerns about that house. This proposal would move the house to another location nearby, but would require the relocation of it. And last but not least, yes, the Kerbela Temple proposal, the apartment complex proposed for the Kerbela Temple site in South Knoxville, is back. So
third time's the charm, or fourth time.
Third,
I
fourth.
don't remember where we are.
Yeah, plenty of times. Yeah, there's all kinds of charm going on here. So but anyway, that'll be back. We'll be covering the Planning Commission meeting and a whole bunch more next week. Want to thank Jesse. Thanks for coming here and your coverage you provided on the election and other things. So glad you were able to rouse yourself today enough to come out here. It was tough for me. I'm sure it was tough for you as well. Lord Seth, thank you so much for what you do. Thanks to Will Wright for providing music for us. We'll be back next week. And thank you for listening. So those of you who have stuck with us for an hour and a half or so and put up with us, thanks a whole bunch.
And congratulations, Scott, for your August 26th election prediction win on our little internal bet here. I got to win. You got to win. Jesse, you got to make it up in November to get this.
I told you, I'm wrong all the time. This is what I always tell people.
Well, that and what, $5.50 will get me a cup of coffee at Starbucks or something anyway. Thanks again for listening, and we will be back next week with another installment of Compass Points.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.